Welcome to Vault Studio.
This is Story Vault Studio. The rain started small, the kind that drips for 10 days and never quite commits to a storm. Then it stopped being small. Riley Adams watched the water climb her building floor by floor, the parking garage gone, the ground level swallowed, and a countdown ticking down on every phone in the complex. She had no gift, no warning from the universe, only a pantry stocked from one lucky grocery run and a locked door between her and 30 other stories of people running out of time. Across the hall, a stranger she barely knew was about to become the only person she could trust. Below her, someone else was about to become the only person she truly feared. As the water kept rising and the building itself began to groan under the weight of it, one question mattered more than any other. How far would people go when the world outside simply stopped being survivable? If you enjoy immersive stories like this, consider subscribing. Now, let's begin. The alert hit every phone in the building at once. A red warning for extreme rainfall, all residents ordered to stay indoors. A countdown ticking toward 13 hours until conditions turned catastrophic. Riley Adams stood in her kitchen and stared at the notification like it might change if she looked hard enough. Outside her window, the world she'd known that morning had already begun to seize up and go still. It hadn't started as anything dramatic, just a light rain at first, the kind that dripped for 10 straight days without ever really committing to a storm. Then the thunder came, rolling through the sky for hours at a stretch, until Riley found herself joking to no one that the weather gods had it out for her. The water had been rising for a while now, slow and patient, and it had already swallowed the entire ground floor of the complex. Riley wasn't the type who got reincarnated with future knowledge or blessed with some convenient prophetic gift. Whatever chance she had of getting through this, she owed to nothing but the pantry she'd built one grocery run at a time. The day it all started, she'd just gotten off work. Walking past the supermarket, she overheard a college kid grumbling about the weather, wondering out loud when it would ever cool down. It was 5 in the afternoon, and her phone still read 102 degrees. With 2 weeks off coming up, she decided to swing in and stock up. The blast of air conditioning hit her the second the door slid open, and she nearly groaned out loud with relief. She grabbed a cart and pushed it inside. The store was quieter than usual. Everyone else apparently had decided the heat wasn't worth fighting either. She drifted past the snack aisle first, telling herself she only wanted a little something, and somehow ended up with an armful before she even noticed. The condiment aisle did her in completely. Hot sauce, all the rice bowl toppings she could carry, sauce after sauce sliding into the cart. She skipped the rice, oil, and pasta. Her mother had already dropped off several sacks of rice, some flour, and a box of noodles she hadn't even opened yet. From there, it was vegetables, fruit, a few bags of her favorite instant ramen. By the time she got to the register, the total had crept past $200. It stung a little, but she told herself it was worth it. She wouldn't have to leave the apartment again for weeks. She hauled 2 overstuffed bags out into the heat and immediately regretted not calling a car. By the time she made it home, it was past 7, the air only marginally cooler than it had been at noon. She dropped onto the couch, cranked the air conditioning, and pulled up her game. The matchmaking had gotten worse lately. 2 rounds, 2 losses, and she tossed her phone down in disgust, sweaty and irritated enough to head for the shower. When she came out, the 2 grocery bags sitting on the floor gave her a small headache just looking at them, but she sorted through anyway, slicing the leftover meat into portions and packing them into the freezer. She shut the fridge on a satisfied, overstuffed shelf and felt something like pride. Her stomach started complaining not long after. She pulled out vegetables and noodles, planning to make the mashed potato noodle dish everyone online was obsessed with, and reached for eggs to fry on top, only to find she was out. unacceptable. A person who loved eggs the way she did could not run out of eggs. She placed an order on her delivery app right then. 60 eggs, 2 crates of water, and a bundled 2-pack deal at 25% off that she wasn't about to pass up. By the time the noodles were mixed and she tasted the first bite, she groaned out loud. Pure starch on starch. Carbs squared, joy doubled. She'd barely finished the mouthful when the doorbell chimed and the peephole showed the delivery driver. Fastest delivery she'd ever gotten. 5 stars, guaranteed. She told him to just leave it by the door, watched him disappear into the elevator, then brought everything inside. By the time she'd eaten her fill, it was nearly 10. She looked around the apartment. Her apartment. 1 bedroom, 1 living room, 31st floor. Her mother had bought it outright when Riley decided to settle in the city. Small, but solidly built. Everything about it exactly right. Earlier that evening, she'd checked the forecast and seen the clouds massing dark on the horizon, the first hints of rain. The official forecast hadn't called for any of it. Online, people were saying the city had triggered cloud seeding. Rumors were rumors, and rain, in any case, wasn't a bad thing. She kept playing her game until the thunder started rolling in low and steady. When she stuck her head toward the window, she saw drops the size of beans hammering the glass. Before long, the rain had built into something heavier. Down in the resident chat, everyone was cheering. Storm-related searches were trending. Riley didn't think much of it, stretched out comfortable on the couch, and drifted off without noticing. The rain never let up all night. When she woke the next morning, it was already 11. It was still coming down, though there were signs it might be thinning out. She rolled off the couch and got up to prep ingredients for hot pot. Her mother called on video. Her mother wanted to know what she was up to, and Riley admitted, a little sheepishly, that she was already making hot pot at home since she wasn't going anywhere in this weather. Her mother clucked at her about eating too much of that stuff and warned that the rain over there had been brutal. Hadn't a whole city flooded a couple years back? No injuries, but plenty of nerves rattled since. She wanted Riley stocked up and staying inside. Riley assured her she'd already bought enough to last half a month and promised not to step outside before her break ended. "Are you taking care of yourself?" her mother pressed. "Promise you'll call if anything happens." After coaxing her mother off the phone, Riley had barely hung up when a crack of thunder made her jump. If it sounded that loud from inside her own living room, she didn't want to imagine what it was like outside. She got up and walked to the window, watching the rain thicken by the minute, and felt an unease settle into her chest that she couldn't quite name. Her phone was a wall of rain warning alerts, each one more severe than the last. The downpour had thickened the air outside into something almost solid, blurring the view until she couldn't make out anything below. She checked the resident chat and found it in chaos. People arguing about their cars in the flooding parking garage, demanding the building management pump the water out. Riley went back to the couch, sat down, but the restlessness wouldn't leave her. Something felt wrong, though she couldn't say what. She got up to do a walkthrough of the apartment instead. If the rain only lasted a week, she wouldn't have to worry. She had enough water and food. But what if it didn't stop? She checked the window seals with her fingers. Dry. She silently thanked the contractor who'd installed them. Unusually careful work. The seals were holding. No leaks yet. From experience, she knew prolonged heavy rain usually meant the power would go eventually. While she stood there working out what to do next, she remembered a hand-crank generator she'd bought on impulse during some online trend. She dug it out, followed the instructions to start it up, and found a pleasant surprise. It could charge a phone directly. Whatever happened, at least she wouldn't have to worry about her phone dying. She was heading to get the cat some food when a flash of lightning lit the whole apartment bright as day. What she saw outside wasn't rain anymore. It wasn't drops. It was a wall of water, a waterfall pouring straight down. Thunder cracked right behind it. Riley yanked the curtains shut, hands not quite steady. Her mother texted, urging her to find a way home. Their place was up in the hills. No flood could reach that high. Riley sat on the couch with her expression falling. There was no getting home now, not with things the way they were. How long would this last? Would the city even hold? She sat lost in thought for what felt like half the day and never came up with an answer. Forgot to eat, eventually crawled into bed with a novel and fell asleep without noticing. When she woke, the room was pitch dark except for the little lamp by the bed. Her phone was flooded with unread messages. The parking garage had gone completely underwater. Building management was calling around, trying to negotiate space for the residents on the flooded lower floors. For now, people were still civil, most willing to cooperate. With the rain possibly dragging on for days more, Riley decided to take stock of everything she had. 4 bags of rice, plus 5 more 44-pound sacks. A bag each of all-purpose flour, dried noodles, instant noodles, a whole cabinet shelf of snacks and vegetarian packets, dozens of each, over 50 eggs. If she stuck to staples alone, she doubted she could finish it all in 2 months. Add the frozen meat and dumplings in the freezer, and she was set for a long stretch, easily enough for one person. Counting this trip and the last, she had 10 cases of bottled water. It was a relief to see it laid out. She had more than she'd realized, but the water still felt thin. People kept saying prolonged heavy rain led to water shutoffs or contamination, so she needed to build up her reserve further. Taking the trash down to the ground floor clearly wasn't an option anymore. She left it in the public bin out in the hallway instead, and while she was at it, locked the emergency stairwell door behind her. The residents seemed friendly enough on the surface, but if this rain dragged on, once the water and power went and food ran scarce, she wasn't willing to bet on anyone's better nature. The elevator at least required a keycard, so she wasn't too worried there. She was on the 31st floor, the top one, only 2 units up here, counting hers. Her neighbor across the hall was a novelist, the reclusive type who barely left his apartment. She'd hardly ever crossed paths with him. She sat with the thought a while before finally deciding to message him. She asked carefully whether he'd seen the group chat. The garage had flooded completely. They likely wouldn't be leaving anytime soon. And whether he had food stocked up. He answered almost instantly. He'd stocked up plenty online recently, enough for months. Impressive. Wealthier in supplies than she was, apparently. She was still marveling at that when another message came through. Something wrong? If you're low on food, I can share some. No way either of us is getting out of here soon. Warmth spread through her chest. There really were more good people than bad. Still, she didn't tell him the truth. She typed back that she had a box of instant noodles left, enough for a week, and thanked him, said she was fine for now. Blake didn't text back after that. Riley thought it over and decided to download a few novels instead. Apocalypse stories were her favorite genre, along with a game to kill the downtime while things loaded, settling back onto the couch. A sudden knock at the door made her jump nearly out of her skin. She crept toward it, mind racing through who it could be. The peephole showed no one. Her unease spiked. Her phone buzzed. A message from Blake. Left you some self-heating rice and water outside your door. Don't worry about it. Let me know if you need anything else. She cracked the door open and found, sure enough, a box of supplies sitting there. A flush of shame crept up her neck. She told herself she'd repay him if the chance ever came. She typed back a quick line of thanks. Blake didn't reply again. She spent a long while sorting the new supplies and realized it had already passed 1 in the afternoon. No wonder she was starving. She microwaved a plate of frozen dumplings and ate until she was full. Stomach round and heavy, she sprawled on the couch and noticed the room felt colder than before. Even with a blanket pulled up, there was a chill she couldn't shake. She went to the window. The rain hadn't let up at all. The soundproofing held most of it out, but she could still catch the shriek of wind underneath. She touched the glass, ice cold, and checked her phone. The outdoor reading had dropped into the 30s. It had to be colder outside than that. The seals were still dry, at least. She thought a moment, then dug out packing tape and ran a rough rectangle around the window frame, copying something she'd seen online for stormproofing. It looked ugly, but it made her feel a little safer. She called her mother again on video, showed her the stockpile and the taped windows. Her mother approved. The rain had been going for 3 days and nights straight now, and disaster coverage had taken over every news outlet in the city. Riley sighed and hoped it would end soon. Aside from sleeping, she barely left the couch anymore, curled up with her novel while the wind howled outside, and somehow in here, she still felt strangely at peace. That night, she slept on the couch with the kitten curled against her, not bothering with the bedroom. Just one small nightlight left on in the living room. Better not to draw attention right now. Something past midnight, screaming from somewhere below, jolted her out of sleep. She opened her phone. Messages were pouring through the resident chat faster than she could read them. The water had reached the second floor. The drainage system had failed. Food was running short. One message in particular caught her eye. Someone broke into Unit 205. Everyone be careful. A guy going by Lucas posed as a maintenance worker to get her to open the door, took most of her food, and now he's hiding somewhere in the building. Keep your doors locked. Management responded quickly, promising they were looking into it and asking residents not to panic, not to open doors to strangers unless necessary. A cold sweat broke over Riley. If the rain kept up like this, it would eventually swallow even the higher floors, and the roof would become the only safe ground left, which would only make her situation worse. She glanced toward the dark hallway, relieved the power at least was still on. She didn't sleep the rest of the night, lying awake until dawn, the outside temperature still bitter, a thin draft slipping in through the window sill. She shivered, but the storm from the night before had at least eased into a light drizzle, and looking down from her window, she saw nothing but debris churning across the flooded surface below. Management was taking a head count downstairs to request emergency supplies, but explained that buildings hit harder by the disaster were the priority for relief. Her building, it seemed, would be waiting a long while yet. She decided not to bother reporting in. She didn't need it that badly. Silence didn't mean she'd go unnoticed, though. A young man from the 6th floor messaged her directly. He'd been the one who helped carry her bags into the elevator that day. Weeks of relentless rain meant food shortages were inevitable. After all, who stockpiled groceries like she had, out of the blue? He apologized for the intrusion, said his family was completely out of instant noodles, that he'd seen her hauling in 2 full bags that day and was hoping if it wasn't too much trouble, she could spare some. Riley was still weighing whether to answer when her phone buzzed again. It was Blake. He'd seen the same message in the group chat. The guy on 6 is asking around for help. Her stomach dropped. Had Blake gotten the same private message too? She typed back one word. Yeah.
Blake replied fast. He hadn't answered him either. Same, she wrote. Good, he answered. This isn't the time to go soft, but if you ever need help, you can count on me. We're one wall apart. That's still safer than being downstairs. She stared at those lines for a long moment, something in the ice around her chest cracking open, just slightly. Maybe, in a building slipping this fast out of control, Blake could actually turn out to be someone she could trust. She set her phone down. The cold made hunger sharper. She should use up what was in the freezer first. She pulled out some beef and started a pot of meatball soup to warm herself up. 30 minutes later, it was ready. Watching the steam curl off the pot gave her a little more peace of mind than she expected. She just switched off the burner and reached for a ladle when frantic footsteps pounded up outside, followed by pounding on her door and a young man's hoarse, desperate voice. I know you're in there. You have food. Please open the door. My grandmother's dying. Her heart lurched. The kid from the 6th floor?
Without a keycard, how would he even reach this floor? She didn't have time to work it out. She held her breath, crept to the door, and looked through the peephole. His voice climbed higher, the pounding grew harder, the door shuddering in its frame with every blow. The warning from the group chat about the fake maintenance worker was still ringing in her ears, and it kept her rooted where she stood, too afraid to move. Then, beside her, soft footsteps approached, and Blake's low voice cut through the noise. "Stop pounding," he said. "No one's answering. You're just going to cause trouble for yourself." The young man froze, clearly not expecting a voice to answer back, then grew even more agitated. "Who are you? I know Unit 31 has food. I saw her carrying 2 big bags home. My grandmother is starving to death. How can she be that cold-blooded?" A scuffle broke out right outside. Riley's chest tightened, terrified the two of them would come to blows. Nobody's nerves were steady right now, and if it turned physical, there was no telling how far it would go. The young man's fists were clenched tight, his eyes bloodshot, while Blake stood planted in front of her door, expression calm as he said, "I'm her neighbor. I know the situation better than you do. She doesn't have much left either, not enough to last more than a few days." "I don't care. I'm out of options." The kid shoved Blake aside, completely past reasoning, and started slamming his fists against the door again. "Hey, if you don't open up, I'll get people up here to see just how cold-blooded you really are." His shouting bounced down the empty hallway, grating and raw. Riley couldn't take it. She reached for the lock, about to open the door herself. Blake stepped in front of him again, weary now. "I've got 2 packs of compressed biscuits at my place. Take those and go. Keep this up and you won't like what happens next." The kid went still, his fist slowly loosening, mumbling an apology, something about his grandmother, his voice cracking. Blake turned back toward his own door. As he passed hers, he knocked 3 soft times and spoke low enough that only she could hear. "Don't be scared. I'll handle it. He's not going to hurt you." Riley cracked the door and watched Blake hand the biscuits over and walk the young man off. Something in her chest gave way completely in that moment. So there really were people, even in a situation this hopeless, willing to reach out a hand, not just looking out for themselves. Blake turned and caught her watching. Before she could get a word of thanks out, he spoke first. "It's fine. Lock up tight. I'm heading back." She nodded, grateful, and returned to the living room. A message from him popped up on her screen. "That commotion is going to draw attention we don't want. Lock your window tonight no matter what. Don't open the door for anything you hear. If something happens, knock on the wall. I'm right here." She thanked him, admitted she'd frozen up, and told him he'd given away every biscuit he had. "What about you?" "Don't worry," he replied. "I've got more stocked than you do. I'll hold out fine." She fired back a quick reply and was about to say more when her phone buzzed again. Someone in the group chat reporting a strange man loitering on the 4th floor, acting suspicious, likely the same one from before.
The days blurred together after that. The rain didn't ease. If anything, it grew heavier. Her pantry thinned to bare shelves. The hallway lights flickered and failed for good. And by the time it had gone on a full month, the 6th floor down had become unlivable. Soaked this long, the building itself had started to shudder. Leaks broke out across more and more units. Riley's apartment wasn't spared either. The corners and window frames wept steadily now, the air thick with the smell of mildew. Worse, her food was running low fast. All that remained was a handful of vegetarian packets, a jar of pickled vegetables, half a bag of rice. Blake wasn't much better off. His biscuits and canned goods were nearly gone too. This couldn't go on. Riley stared out the window, wondering if this rain would ever end. Blake texted then, "Let's pool our supplies, ration together. The building's getting less stable by the day. If it comes down, we don't want to be caught apart. We need a way out." She didn't hesitate. "I'll sort what I've got and bring it over," she wrote back. "No need. I'll come to you, he answered. I want to see how bad the leak is on your side anyway. I've got tarp that might help. Not long after, a soft knock came at the door. She checked it was him and let him in fast. He carried a roll of waterproof tarp and a bag of food, his face tight with frustration. His place had it worse than hers. The paint was starting to peel right off the walls. Worry creased her face. I can't do much alone. Let's put everything together and you stay here. We can watch each other's backs and it'll help against Lucas too. Blake nodded and they laid what supplies remained out on the table. This gets us maybe a week. We need a way out inside 7 days, Blake said, frowning as he worked the tarp over the leaking corner, hands quick and practiced. Riley held the kitten and watched him work, unable to help herself. But it's all water out there. How do we even leave? We don't have a boat. He paused, sighed. I don't know yet. We wait and see. The water downstairs keeps rising. Going down there now would be suicide, and Lucas is still lurking somewhere in the dark. We have to stay calm. Blake stayed at her place after that. By day, they took turns at the window, tracking movement below, rationing every scrap of food and every sip of water down to the last drop. By night, they split the watch. No matter how tired they got, neither let their guard down. Footsteps and crying echoed through the hallway sometimes. Residents from the lower floors, obviously, searching for somewhere safe to stand. Most had likely moved up toward the roof by now. Late one night, on watch, Blake suddenly tensed. He touched her arm, voice dropping low. Don't make a sound. Someone's at the door. Doesn't sound friendly. She snapped, fully alert. Every nerve in her body pulled tight. She followed his eyes toward the door, and a second later, the pounding started. Hard, brutal knocking. 301. Open up. Management's got supplies for you. She and Blake crept to the door together. Through the peephole, Riley saw Lucas, and terror flooded through her. She stumbled back on instinct. Blake touched her shoulder lightly, a silent reassurance. Then his voice turned cold. Who's there? Pounding on doors this late? If management's delivering, why wasn't there a notice first? Outside, Lucas's movements stuttered, eyes darting, clearly not expecting a man's voice to answer. He didn't back off, though, slamming his club against the door again, cursing. 301, don't play dead. I know you're in there. That kid on 6 already told everyone you've got food. And you, 302, I remember you too. Why are you in there? Mind your own business or I'll take you down along with her. He kept swinging the club at the door, the impact echoing down the hall. Blake grabbed a length of steel pipe propped in the corner, gripping it tight, and motioned for her to stay put, not to move. Then he yanked the door open, expression flat and cold as he faced Lucas. I'll say it once more. Get out, or you won't like what happens. Lucas eyed the pipe with a flicker of hesitation, but pushed forward anyway, swinging his club. You think I'm scared of you? I'm getting supplies tonight no matter what. Blake moved fast, sidestepping the blow, then struck back hard, catching Lucas across the arm. Lucas yelped, and the club clattered from his grip. That's all you've got, and you still had the nerve to show up here? Blake's voice dripped mockery as he advanced. Get out. Keep this up, and I'll tie you up and dunk you in the flood downstairs myself. Give you a real taste of what drowning feels like. Lucas realized the odds weren't in his favor, alone against the two of them. He glared, venomous, and spat a threat before turning to bolt down the stairwell, disappearing into the dark, leaving nothing behind but deep dents in the door. They didn't chase him. They locked the door immediately. Blake turned to her. It's okay. He's gone. Only then did Riley notice she was shaking all over. She hugged the kitten tight, tears falling without permission, her voice breaking. Thank you. I'm sorry you keep having to deal with this because of me. It's fine, but he's not going to let this go. We need to be more careful. She nodded hard, glancing at the thin supplies left on the table, then at Blake beside her, anxious and reassured all at once. The following day, they stayed even more alert, avoiding the window during daylight. That afternoon, Blake pressed himself close to the wall, watching the water below carefully. He suddenly frowned. "Come here. Something's happening down there. It's Lucas. Looks like he found something." She rushed over and looked down. A rubber dinghy bobbed on the water, and Lucas, soaked through, was struggling to haul himself onto it. Her stomach dropped. Where had he gotten a boat? Good thing they hadn't rushed down earlier, or they'd have run right into him. It looked like someone had abandoned the dinghy, and Lucas got lucky enough to find it first. But with his temper, luck wouldn't hold him long. The moment he ran into trouble in that water, they'd move. No hesitation, no chance for anyone to react. They worked in perfect sync, packing what water and rations remained into a bag, eyes never leaving the boat below. Sure enough, it didn't take long for a disaster to strike. Lucas flailed with the club-turned oar, still cursing under his breath. Wait till I get out of here. Completely blind to the pillar looming ahead until it was too late. The boat struck the pillar hard. Lucas lost his balance, arms grabbing at empty air, finding nothing. A second later, he plunged straight into the freezing floodwater. Riley sucked in a sharp breath, the sound of her own heartbeat all she could hear. She looked down again, Lucas thrashing wildly, screaming for help, soaked and pathetic, but his hand was still locked around the club, his eyes still glinting with the same greed and malice. Don't worry about him. He brought this on himself. With Lucas out of the way and the water lapping just below the 20th floor by now, they finally risked the unlocked stairwell, working their way down landing by landing until the 7th floor was as far as the dry stairs would take them. They ran fast to the 7th floor window ledge, directly across from the drifting boat. Blake jumped first, then looked up at her. "Jump, there's no other way. I'll catch you from below." Terrified of the height, she forced herself anyway, closed her eyes and jumped. No freefall sensation like she'd braced for. When she opened her eyes again, she was steady inside the rubber boat. Blake held her arm, murmuring, "Sit tight, we're moving." Icy floodwater sloshed over the edge. The kitten poked its head out of the bag, eyes fixed on the drowned road ahead. They paddled for over half an hour before the rain finally thinned and the sky lightened to a dull gray. Blake, standing at the bow, went suddenly still. "Riley, look, over there. Are those two people?" She followed his gaze and made out two figures drifting on a wooden plank, the current slowly carrying them closer. A moment later, a cry for help reached them on the wind. "Somebody, please, help us!" Riley and Blake both sobered, careful not to act rashly. As the distance closed, she recognized them. A middle-aged couple sat on the plank, her downstairs neighbors, who'd always looked out for her. She turned to Blake without a second thought. "It's Mr. Adam and Mrs. Ann." Blake understood immediately and dug his paddle in hard, steering toward the plank. Riley reached her arms out, ready. "Mr. Adam, Mrs. Ann, don't let go, we've got you." She grabbed Ann's arm and pulled. The woman looked up, recognition flooding her eyes with tears. "Riley? Blake, is that really you?" They hauled both of them into the boat. Adam caught his breath, looking at them with pure gratitude. "Thank you. We won't forget this as long as we live." Anne, once she'd recovered, pulled 2 loaves of bread and some water from a waterproof bag she'd kept close. "We grabbed a little on the way out, meant to make it last until rescue came. Take some. Don't be shy about it." Riley looked at the meager supplies in the woman's hands, then at the sincerity in her eyes, and didn't refuse. They'd helped her before. Pulling them from the water now was as much repayment as it was simple decency, the kind that still survived, even at the end of the world. They drifted farther from the complex. Debris churned across the water in every direction. Blake's eyes caught something in the distance. "Wait, there's a life ring over there." He steered close and scooped it out of the water. Their luck hadn't run out completely, it seemed. It was one more thing to keep hold of, just in case. Food was never quite enough. They rationed the bread and dried rations carefully, splitting everything into 4 shares. Small bites washed down with rainwater.
The bottled water became precious beyond words, just enough each time to wet dry, cracked lips. The kitten curled against Riley's leg from time to time, nudging her hand, offering a small warmth through the long, drifting days. Watching the food dwindle further, worry crept back in. Adam studied the water and said there had to be fish in it, worth a try at least. It'd fill their stomachs some. He rigged a simple line from scraps salvaged out of the floating debris and settled in patiently by the edge of the boat. Before long, the line jerked. Adam yanked up. A small fish caught, no bigger than his palm. Everyone lit up at once. By the end of that afternoon, they'd caught 2 more, threading them onto a branch and hanging them off the side to drain.
The rain finally settled in. They sat together in the boat, sharing the dried fish between them. Tough, hard to chew, but better than nothing. The kitten pressed close again, and Riley broke off a small piece, feeding it carefully. It ate in tiny bites, and for a moment, amid quiet laughter, things felt almost warm again. That warmth didn't last. Early the next morning, as they paddled toward higher ground in the distance, a violent gust tore through without warning, whipping the water into waves fiercer than anything they'd faced yet. The boat flipped, throwing all of them into the freezing current, cold slicing through to the bone instantly. "Grab onto this!" Blake's voice cut through the wind, thick with panic. She reached out on instinct and felt something soft land in her hands, the life ring from before.
Hold on, don't let go." His voice was already fading with distance. The ring kept her afloat. The kitten clung to the hem of her shirt, terrified of being swept away. She screamed his name until her throat gave out, and Adam and Anne's voices grew fainter and fainter behind her. She caught one last glimpse of Blake, dragged under by another wave, his shape shrinking into the distance. She tried to fight, tried to grab something, anything, but her body had nothing left to give. Everything went dark at the edges. Just before consciousness slipped away completely, a voice reached her, faint and worried. "Hey, stay with me. Wake up, come on." When she opened her eyes again, the light was so bright she had to throw an arm over her face. She turned her head with effort and found 2 rescue workers in red uniforms leaning over her, worry etched into their faces. Where am I?" "Don't worry, you're at a temporary relief station. We found you and your cat during a patrol. There was a middle-aged couple with you too. You've all been unconscious for a full day and night." One of the workers handed her a cup of warm water, gentle. "You got lucky. If we'd found you any later, it could have gone very differently." She took the cup, and some of the tightness in her chest finally loosened.
The relief station sat along the riverbank, dozens of tents pitched across the muddy ground, crowded with others who'd been stranded like she had. Some rested, some comforted each other, some helped sort supplies. It was rough, thrown together, but warm somehow, in a way that mattered. Something surfaced in her mind all at once. "Did you see a guy, white shirt?" She grabbed the worker's sleeve, urgency cracking her voice. His face fell slightly, and he shook his head. "I'm sorry. When we found you, it was just the 3 of you and the cat. No one else." Whatever hope she'd been holding on to collapsed instantly, and the tears came before she could stop them. Blake had given her the ring to save her. That was why he'd gotten swept away. The worker tried to soothe her. "Don't give up hope yet. Search and rescue is still combing the area. We'll find him." Days passed at the relief camp. More people arrived every day, but still no word of Blake. She stayed busy helping around the station, burying her worry under the work. In the quiet hours, she'd sit by the river with the others, roasting fish, saying little. "Attention everyone, reliable reports say the rain is finally letting up. The floodwaters will start receding soon. Crews are working around the clock to clear the roads. It won't be long now before you can all go home." A cheer went up through the camp the second the words landed. Riley stood with tears blurring her face tipped up toward the sky. The storm was finally ending. They could finally go home. "Blake, you heard that too, didn't you?" She hugged a crate of supplies to her chest and started forward, and that was when she saw him, a familiar figure standing on the grass a short distance away, a clean white shirt, head bent, talking to a rescue worker beside him. Her breath caught, disbelief flooding through her. "Blake, is that you?" He turned at the sound of his name, eyes landing on her, and went completely still. Nothing needed to be said after that. No explanation for the fear, the exhaustion, the weeks of holding on. Surviving the end of the world and finding each other again on the other side of it was the best ending either of them could have asked for. The rain had finally stopped. Neither of them was alone anymore.
Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this, consider subscribing for more. We'll see you next time. See ya!